guys, it's the Emerging Educator, and it is the October edition of the Teaching Around the World tag, where I and several other teacher YouTubers around the world collaborate and talk about some of the similarities and differences in education. If you haven't yet checked out any of our videos, please check them out. You're missing some really great stuff, and you can collaborate too. Okay, so this month is October, and we are focusing on the school climate. So all of the questions this month will be focused on the climate of our school and how our daily routines go. So question number 1 is, what type of food do students and teachers eat at school? And so the way my school works, I know several schools have different ways. At my old school last year, the students would eat lunch in the gym, and they would have breakfast inside of the classroom. And the breakfast would be usually cereal, and it would come to the classroom before the students arrived, so that way they could eat and then start the day. At my school this year, they also eat breakfast inside of the classroom, but when the students walk in the school, they pick up a bag lunch from inside the hallway, and then they take that into the room, and then they eat that. The nice thing is my school does something called Everybody Eats, which allows the teachers to have a bag breakfast if they choose to eat one. I usually try to eat before I get to school, but there's some times where, you just don't get a chance to eat. So it's nice that I have that option. As far as lunch, the students do go downstairs where they have several lunch options where they can pick which one they want. There's always a healthy lunch, like a salad. There's usually like a specific lunch of the day, like pizza or a hamburger, and then there's some kind of wrap. Sometimes there's like peanut butter sandwiches and things like that, so that the students have different alternatives. And as far as the teachers, usually the teachers end up bringing their lunch to school. I've said it in a previous video, I tend to just bring finger foods because I tend to find myself working and doing random things to get ready for my next lesson during my lunch, or making copies during my lunch. So I like to have just finger foods that I can munch on as I'm multitasking and getting things done. Number 2 is, how are students evaluated? So at my last school, we evaluated students on their ability to master a skill and their ability to show proficiency in utilizing that skill independently. And so students would be getting marks that weren't A, B, C, D, F. They would rather get number marks, and the number marks meant, are they able to do it independently? Are they still struggling? Are they still severely below expectation? Are they progressing? Things like that. And so they had a number system between 1 and 5, and that's how we would mark where they were at. 5 was that they can do it independently on their own without teacher assistance, and 1 means that they're significantly behind in that skill. My new school, I just started at a new school this year, so my new school is a more traditional, or at least what I'm more used to, which is the letter grade system. So it's the A, B, C, D, F system, where students are evaluated on their ability to, yes, do the standard, but also it's including like homework grades and things like that, but it's based on content. I know some schools have done like grades based on like handwriting or behavior, but our school doesn't have us marking students for behavior. We actually are marking students on performance, their assessments, their exams, and I believe their skills. I'm sorry, I wasn't too sure on that last one, but mainly it's their performance and their assessments. The next question is, how are students' grades entered? And I've been really lucky. I've always worked where grades have been entered in the computer system. So there's like an online portal where the teachers will log in and track all of the student grades. And there's not so much of a paper trail. Last year, my old school had some issues with technology, getting the technology up and running for everyone to be able to do that. So the first couple of weeks, we were doing paper grades, but we eventually had to transfer that over into the online portal. And so we do use grades, and we enter them on online portal. And of course, this can be something that varies by school district and school, really, grade level. Okay, so the next question I did touch on before. It is, what types of grades can students receive? And as I mentioned before, my students receive A, B, C, D, F grades, so letter grades, based on their academic performance and their exams and their assessments. So it's not really based on like behavior or handwriting, but really how they're performing. And but I do keep track of the students' behaviors, and I kind of use that to lead my conferences when I meet with parents. I like to give the students just an informal like self-assessment for them to be able to self-assess how they're doing in certain skills. And it's usually just a thumbs up, thumbs to the middle, or thumbs down based on what they feel that they would mark themselves as. So there might be a link that says, or a statement that says, I always turn in my homework, and I want them to assess, like, do they feel that they always do that, or is that something that they should be able to improve upon? And so there's 10 statements, and it ranges from I'm a member of a positive community at school, or I team build in school, I work as a team, I follow my teacher's instructions, I prioritize my work. So questions like that, and they really assess what they feel that they deserve. And then when I have their parent in front of me and the student in front of me for conferences, we usually sit down and we talk about each one of those, and I compare what the student gave themselves to what I would give them as a mark in that same area. And I usually use a lot of my Class Dojo records, so a lot of the scores and percentages from Class Dojo to kind of back me up and show why I would give that. So for example, I follow my teacher's directions. If the student gave themselves a thumbs up, and I think that they kind of deserve a thumbs in the middle, I would pull up my Class Dojo screen for the parents to see, this quarter, he's actually gotten only 60% of following directions, and he's got some red marks for not following directions. So I would kind of use that to just explain my reasoning a little bit to the parents. And the nice thing with Class Dojo is that when you do something like that, you can keep track of all the behaviors that you want on there, and then pull up the report for a custom date range. So I usually put it for the entire quarter, or the entire semester, or the entire academic grading period. And so that usually helps me a lot, because it allows me to use Class Dojo not just daily, but at conferences, and consistently remind the parents about why it's such a great app. So use it. Okay, so the next question is, what is your country's stance on punishments or sanctions in the classroom? In the United States, there used to be corporal punishment, where the teachers or the administrators would be able to physically punish students for bad behavior. And I just did a quick Google search, and it's now outlawed in the United States. But what's interesting to me is that it wasn't outlawed all at the same time. Like, some states were outlawing it sooner than others. So I teach in Illinois by Chicago, and Illinois outlawed corporal punishment in the classroom in 1994. And so I was just looking at some statistics, and for example, I think it's New Mexico, but there's some states that are less than 10 years ago, they were still corporally punishing students. Now, instead of corporal punishment, I've noticed a lot of schools tend to focus on like positive behavior enforcement, so really using PBIS, positive behavior intervention systems, to promote positive student behaviors and get students motivated to do the right thing. So I've noticed a lot of schools doing that. My current school focuses on like community and collaboration, and so it's all about working together as a community. The nice thing I like about my school is that sometimes if I have friends that need a break because they're getting frustrated or they just need to step out of class for a minute and reassess what they're doing, we do have a buddy system for teachers where we can send them for about 5 or 10 minutes outside of the room to another teacher that we trust, so that way they can come back ready and focused to learn. It's my first time using that system, and so far I really like it, so we'll see how that goes. The next question has to do with how long the school year is and how the school year is formed. So at my last school district, they did something a little bit different. They had 40 weeks of school, but the way that they spread it out was after every 10 weeks, after every quarter, they would give you a week-long break. And during that week, the teachers wouldn't have school, but some students could come back to the school for extra assistance. And it was called like an intersession, where the students would come, the really low or even the enrichment students could come and get additional help and support to help them grow academically. And that was nice because you got a nice little break, and like our spring break was 2 weeks instead of 1. But we had to start earlier, so we started the first week of August and we ended the middle of June, just like everyone else, like in Chicago public schools and all of that. So even though it was nice having those breaks, we had to start earlier, so our summer was essentially shorter. My current school district, I work for Chicago Public Schools, and we have a 180 school day calendar. We don't have those breaks in the middle of the marking periods, but we do have like winter break and things like that. So usually CPS starts the day after Labor Day or around that first week of September, and they tend to go to mid to maybe like the third week of June. So it's a nice long school year. We'll see how that goes. I've never taught like that time frame, so I'm excited to see how I feel by the end of this year with that time frame. Alright, and the last question is, how would you describe the students in your area? So I teach in Chicago Public Schools, so we do have a lot of students that are of low socioeconomic status, homes that don't have both parents. They have a lot of extreme living situations, so they might be living with grandparents that are or family members, and so that makes like a non-traditional living situation. Sometimes the students don't have a lot of the things that they need to be successful, so sometimes they won't have supplies, or they won't have uniforms and things like that, or they won't have food. So a lot of times that's why our school does have the free and reduced lunch program to kind of help those students that might not have food at home to still be able to get a good meal, a balanced meal with fruit and things like that. Behavior wise, I would say a lot of my students are, I wouldn't say rowdy, but they have tough lives, and so they're very strong-willed. That's the word I'm looking for, strong-willed. And that tends to lead to like some behavior issues, like kids who talk back, or kids that tend to resort to violence to solve their problems instead of telling the teacher. Personality, I feel like they want extra love, they want extra attention, and so it's difficult when you have a big class. I have 27 or 28 right now, so it's tricky because there's a lot of them and there's only one of me, so that does get tricky. But I mean, I try my best to help each one of them with the love and giving them what they need. So yeah, a lot of times I end up putting a lot in, like for example, a lot of times I end up buying them the supplies that they need, or giving them shirts because they don't have a uniform, or creating a donor's choose for a listening center for my centers. So if you're looking, I do have a donor's choose project that could use some funding to help get my students a listening center for our daily 5 rotations. So if you have a chance, please check out the link. And that will be really awesome. And honestly, the teachability for my students, I feel like a really big part of that depends on the parents. Like, their teachability, like, are they getting exposure to those things at home? Because if not, like, it lowers their teachability because they're just not getting that support at home. So that means, you know, you have to try a little bit harder, you have to give a little bit more, and you're doing it alone because you don't have as much support at home. So I would say teachability really depends on how much support they're getting inside and outside of the classroom. But in general, I see that they tend to, they want to learn. And as they find out new things and new skills, they get interested in it. So it's just my job to help them get there. Okay, so that is October, another month of the Teaching Around the World tag completed. Check mark, it's done. If you're new to this series, please check out some of the other videos that I've posted about teaching around the world and some of the other collaborators. It's Nicholas from Happy Teacher True Story and Life in Kafoople Land. We started this tag. It's slowly getting some momentum, so please check out the videos, like them, comment, subscribe, do your own video. That's really how our dream was. We just want to see what teaching is like across the world and some of the similarities and differences that we see. So until next time, I'll see you next month for our next installment. Check out some of the links. I'm going to try and link videos down below. So have a great day.